the Raiders might be moving on from quarterback Gardner Minshew. According to The Athletic, the team is expected to keep Aidan O'Connell for the 2025 season, while Minshew, who signed a 2-year $25 million deal last March, is unlikely to return. This isn't really a surprise. Minshew struggled last season, and many had hoped he could step up and prove he belonged in the big leagues. But that never happened. The Raiders had a rough year, and the quarterback situation remained a major problem. Ever since letting go of Derek Carr, they haven't found a true franchise quarterback. Keeping O'Connell makes sense. He's younger, has some potential, and could serve as a bridge until the Raiders find their next long-term QB. And that's the big challenge ahead, finding the right guy to lead this team. The Raiders will explore their options in free agency and the NFL draft, so it makes sense to move on from at least one quarterback. Minshew seems like the odd man out. The team now has a decision to make: when to cut him. If they release him before June 1st, they'll save $6.3 million in cap space, but take on $7.6 million in dead cap. If they wait until after June 1st, the dead cap drops to $4.6 million. The Raiders could also try to trade him for a late-round draft pick, which might be the best option. According to Sports Illustrated, 3 teams could be potential trade partners. The Atlanta Falcons make sense. They have rookie Michael Penix Jr. as their future starter, and with Kirk Cousins likely hitting free agency, Minshew could be a solid veteran backup. Another option is the Indianapolis Colts, the team he played for before joining the Raiders, where he even had a Pro Bowl season. Finally, the Carolina Panthers could be interested. With Andy Dalton set to hit free agency, Minshew could back up Bryce Young, who showed big improvements last season. If it were up to me, I wouldn't mind keeping Minshew as a backup. But considering how much he's getting paid and how things played out in Vegas, it's probably best for the Raiders to move on. With Gardner Minshew likely on his way out, the big question is, who will be the next quarterback for the Raiders? There are plenty of names floating around, and free agency will offer a lot of options. One name that keeps coming up is Vikings quarterback Sam Darnold. According to Albert Breer, the Raiders are expected to spend big in free agency, with a projected $112 million in cap space per spot rack. However, that number is a bit misleading because the team still needs to re-sign key players. The Raiders have some big decisions to make on free agents like Trayvon Moehrig, Marcus Epps, Robert Spillane, and Adam Butler. Once those moves are sorted out, the Raiders will likely have somewhere between $60 to $80 million left to spend. According to Vic Tafur, the Raiders could be ready to open their checkbook for a top free agent quarterback, likely Sam Darnold. While I wouldn't mind Darnold coming to Vegas, he wouldn't be my first choice. Why? Because as the top free agent quarterback, his price tag will be massive. He could demand anywhere from $30 to $40 million per year, which is a huge investment for a player who isn't a guaranteed long-term answer. I get it. Quarterback is the Raiders' biggest need, and they haven't had a solid one since Derek Carr left. But if I were spending that kind of money, I'd rather invest in the offensive and defensive lines to build a stronger team overall. Instead of overpaying for a quarterback, the Raiders could sign a cheaper veteran bridge quarterback and draft a young prospect to develop. Another reason I'm hesitant about Darnold? He might just be a product of Kevin O'Connell's system in Minnesota. We've seen that system make Kirk Cousins, J.J. McCarthy, and even Darnold himself look better than they really are. Just because he looked solid in that offense doesn't mean he'll thrive in Vegas. The Raiders need to be smart with their money. Instead of overpaying for Darnold, they should focus on building a complete team and finding a true franchise quarterback the right way. The big question remains, will Sam Darnold be the same quarterback in Las Vegas that he was in Minnesota? Honestly, I'm not so sure. The Vikings had a great system and strong weapons around him, which helped him perform well. The Raiders? That's a different situation. Now, I could be completely wrong. If the Raiders build the perfect offense around him, he might succeed. But again, it all comes down to money. Signing Darnold would leave little room to add other key pieces. Take Aaron Jones, for example. He's set to be a free agent. If the Raiders want a top quarterback and a top running back, there might not be enough cap space left for other needs. If we want an elite wide receiver, the draft might be the best route. Troy Franklin, TMAC, is a guy I love in this draft. He's a tall, dynamic receiver who could be a game changer in this offense. Another name to consider is Ashton Jeanty, a versatile playmaker who could help the quarterback position in a big way.
But let's be real, there are cheaper quarterback options who could do the same job. One name that's been floated around? Russell Wilson. He could sign a team-friendly deal and bring veteran leadership without draining the Raiders' budget. And then there's the wild card, Aaron Rodgers. I know some fans don't want to hear his name, but let's look at the facts. The Jets are still on the hook to pay him $84 million over the next 2 years. That means if he joins the Raiders, it could be on a veteran minimum or a cap-friendly deal. Even at 40-plus years old, Rodgers is still better than many quarterbacks in the league. Last season, despite the Jets' struggles, he showed flashes of his old brilliance, and in Vegas, he'd have a much better coaching staff. Think about it. Pete Carroll, Tom Brady, Chip Kelly, and Patrick Graham are all in the mix. That's a wealth of experience that could help Rodgers thrive, even at this stage of his career. So, while Darnold is a possibility, the Raiders have other smart, cost-effective options to consider. The front office needs to play this right, build the best team possible, not just throw big money at one position. The Raiders have the right coaching staff to build a competitive team and earn respect from veterans who come on board. If we bring in Aaron Rodgers, we'd still have enough cap space to strengthen the defense and add playmakers on offense. Imagine this: Rodgers at quarterback, plus weapons like T. Higgins, Chris Godwin, or Aaron Jones. That's an offense that could compete immediately. And in the draft, the Raiders could grab a future quarterback, someone who can sit and learn under Pete Carroll, Chip Kelly, and Rodgers himself. Whether it's Troy Franklin, T-Mac, or another young talent, there are plenty of options to build for the future while staying competitive now. I know some fans won't agree, and the comment section might go crazy, but I truly wouldn't mind Rodgers in Vegas. And guess what? Max Crosby feels the same way. He's all about winning, and if Rodgers gives the Raiders a shot at success, why not take it? Now let's talk about Derek Carr. Some fans still bring up his name, wondering if the Raiders should bring him back. Let's be real. No, I have nothing but respect for Carr and what he did for the franchise, but the Raiders have moved on, and going backward won't help this team grow.
If Carr were to become available, through trade or free agency, I wouldn't want the Raiders to bring him back. It's time for a new direction, a fresh start, and a team that's focused on winning now and building for the future. If the Saints release Derek Carr, they'll still owe him $50 million in 2025 and $28 million in 2026. That means, just like Aaron Rodgers, Carr could sign with a new team for a league minimum or up to $10 million, a team-friendly deal. But even at that price, I still wouldn't want him back in Vegas. Say what you will about him, but Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers, even at this stage in their careers, are better options for the Raiders. That's just how I see it. The offseason is going to be wild. The Raiders have a lot of options, and I can't wait to see what moves they make, who they sign, trade for, or draft. It's going to be really interesting. But now I want to hear from Raider Nation. Do you agree with the decision to move on from Gardner Minshew? Should the Raiders pay top dollar for Sam Darnold? Or should they save money and bring in a veteran like Rodgers, Wilson, Carr, Mariota, or even Justin Fields? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And as always, until the next video,